What if I told you that some of the wealthiest and most influential entrepreneurs in American history were black men and women whose names have been systematically erased from textbooks? What if the wealth gap you see today isn't just about discrimination? It's about deliberate erasure of black entrepreneurial success. Today, we're uncovering 5 stories that change everything you thought you knew about American prosperity. Let me take you back to a place where opportunity felt impossible. It's 1865, moments after the Civil War ends. Millions of formerly enslaved African Americans are stepping into a world that promised freedom but delivered chaos. No capital, no networks, no institutional support. The odds weren't just stacked against them. The entire system was designed to break them. But something extraordinary happened. While mainstream American history celebrates the railroad barons, the oil magnates, and the industrial titans of the Gilded Age, there's another story, one of resilience, intelligence, and quiet revolution. There were black Americans who didn't just survive in this hostile environment. They thrived. They built. They accumulated wealth and power in ways that terrified the establishment so much that their legacies were buried. This isn't about victimhood. This is about power that was hidden because it challenged a fundamental American narrative, that black people couldn't build wealth, that black people were only meant to serve as labor, not as employers, that black communities couldn't create generational wealth. The system worked overtime to make sure you never heard these names. Today, we're changing that. Madam C.J. Walker, 1867 to 1919, the first self-made female millionaire. Let's start with Sarah Breedlove, though you likely know her better as Madam C.J. Walker. In 1905, Sarah was a washerwoman in St. Louis, Missouri, making barely $1.50 a day. She had lost her mother early, had been widowed by age 20, and was raising her daughter alone. But she had a problem that would become her empire. Her hair was falling out. The conflict was real and deeply personal. She tried every hair product on the market, but nothing worked. Most were designed for white hair texture, often containing dangerous chemicals like lye. But here's where the revelation happens. Instead of accepting failure, Sarah decided to become a chemist. By 1906, Madam C.J. Walker had developed her own hair care formula. Not just any formula, one that specifically addressed the needs of black women's hair. She called her method the Wonderful Hair Grower, and it worked. What makes this revolutionary is what happened next. Instead of selling to a company, she built her own business. She traveled across the American South, to Tennessee, to Georgia, to Louisiana, teaching women her method and building what became a nationwide network of sales agents, primarily black women who had no other economic opportunities. By 1910, Madam C.J. Walker had moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and established her headquarters. By 1917, she was earning $200,000 annually, which translates to approximately $4.7 million in today's money. She employed over 3,000 women across America, many of whom became wealthy themselves. She built schools, funded hospitals, and donated to the NAACP. But here's the revelation: American textbooks rarely mention her. When black entrepreneurship is discussed, her name is often missing. Why? Because she represented something the system couldn't control: black female economic independence. The conflict wasn't just building the business. It was fighting against the narrative that black women couldn't be millionaires, couldn't employ thousands, couldn't shape an entire industry. John Johnson, 1918 to 2005, the media mogul they wanted forgotten. Now let's travel to Arkansas City, Arkansas, in 1918, where John Harold Johnson was born to a poor sharecropping family. The conflict started early. John's stepfather was killed in a lumber mill accident, and his family moved to Chicago during the Great Migration. In Chicago's South Side, Johnson witnessed something. Black people had money, energy, and culture, but they were invisible in mainstream media. Magazines like Life and Ebony didn't exist to serve black audiences. In 1942, with a $500 loan from his mother against her furniture, the 24-year-old John Johnson launched Negro Digest, a pocket-sized magazine featuring black news and stories. The revelation came quickly. Black Americans wanted to see themselves represented. The magazine succeeded wildly. But John didn't stop there. In 1945, he launched Ebony magazine, which would become the most influential black publication in American history. By the 1950s, ebony had a circulation of over 1 million. Johnson created a media empire that shaped how Black Americans saw themselves and how America saw Black culture. Here's where the conflict intensifies. Johnson wasn't just publishing magazines. He was competing directly with white-owned media companies. He was determining narratives. He was making Black celebrities into household names. He was proving that a Black-owned media company could outcompete white-owned competitors. By the 1970s, Johnson Publishing Company, headquartered in Chicago, Illinois, was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. John Johnson himself accumulated a personal fortune exceeding $200 million. He employed thousands of Black journalists, photographers, and editors who became influential shapers of American culture. The truth they didn't want you to know? Black media built Black consciousness, Black pride, and Black economic power. And one man from Arkansas City created it. Sarah Spencer Washington, 1889 to 1953, the beauty mogul. Before there was a Kardashian empire, there was Sarah Spencer Washington, born in Berkeley, West Virginia. Sarah didn't come from wealth. Her father was a coal miner. But she had ambition and intelligence that no amount of oppression could suppress. In the 1920s, Sarah moved to Atlantic City, New Jersey, during the height of the Jazz Age. She observed that Black women had money from jazz clubs, entertainment venues, and growing businesses, but beauty and cosmetic services designed for Black women's skin and hair were virtually non-existent. She created the Apex School of Beauty Culture in Atlantic City in 1927. But this wasn't just a beauty school, it was a revolutionary institution. She trained Black women in beauty techniques, business management, and entrepreneurship. She didn't just teach them how to do hair and makeup. She taught them how to build businesses. The revelation? Sarah Washington's graduates didn't just become hairdressers. They became shop owners, entrepreneurs, and wealth builders. She franchised her model, establishing Apex beauty shops across the East Coast in cities like Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and New York. At her peak, Sarah Spencer Washington's business empire included over 20,000 sales representatives and agents. She was a millionaire during a time when Black millionaires were so rare they were considered statistical anomalies. The conflict she faced was brutal. Racism, sexism, and the assumption that Black women couldn't manage complex business operations. Yet she built it anyway. Robert Abbott, 1868 to 1940, the man who built the Black press. Robert Sengstack Abbott was born in Savannah, Georgia, to formerly enslaved parents. He was educated, intelligent, and determined. He studied law, but the racism he encountered in the legal profession drove him toward journalism. In 1905, Abbott founded the Chicago Defender from a small room in Chicago, Illinois, with just $3.50. The publication started as something radical, an uncompromising newspaper for Black Americans that didn't apologize for being Black, that didn't bow to white comfort, and that told stories mainstream media ignored. But here's the revelation. Abbott's Defender wasn't just a newspaper. It became a weapon. During the Great Migration, Abbott encouraged Black Southerners to move north. His newspaper published stories of opportunity, posted train schedules, and essentially orchestrated the mass migration that transformed American demographics and economics. Why would the system try to erase this? Because Abbott proved that Black media could shape geopolitics, economics, and population movement. He wasn't just reporting news, he was creating it. By the 1930s, the Chicago Defender had a national circulation exceeding 250,000. Abbott had become a millionaire through journalism, proving that Black minds could compete in media markets and influence national outcomes. The conflict was existential. Could a Black newspaper challenge the narratives of white-owned publications? Could a Black man in the American South's diaspora build something national? Abbott answered yes to both. A'Lelia Walker, 1885 to 1931, the heir who became a legend. Finally, we come to A'Lelia Walker, daughter of Madam C.J. Walker. Her story is different because it's about inheriting revolutionary wealth and amplifying it. A'Lelia inherited her mother's empire after Madam C.J. Walker's death in 1919. But she didn't just maintain what her mother built. She expanded it. She transformed the Walker Company headquarters in Indianapolis, Indiana, into a cultural and business empire. More than that, she became a patron of the Harlem Renaissance. During the 1920s and 1930s, A'Lelia hosted legendary gatherings at Dark Tower in Manhattan where black artists, musicians, writers, and intellectuals convened. She funded black culture. She elevated black excellence. The conflict here is generational. Could wealth built by one generation maintain its power and vision in the next? Could black entrepreneurship support black arts and culture? A'Lelia proved the answer was yes, but the revelation is profound. The Harlem Renaissance, one of the most celebrated periods in black American history, was partially funded by black female wealth. The cultural renaissance that's taught in schools was built partly on the backs of entrepreneurs like Madam C.J. Walker and curated by heirs like A'Lelia Walker. How many times have you read about the Harlem Renaissance without learning that black women's wealth funded it? Here's what the system doesn't want you to understand. These 5 people didn't just get rich. They created ecosystems of wealth. Madam C.J. Walker created thousands of black female entrepreneurs. John Johnson created a media infrastructure that shaped black consciousness. Sarah Spencer Washington created a training system that multiplied success. Robert Abbott created a communications network that moved millions. A'Lelia Walker showed that black wealth could support black culture. Between them, these 5 individuals created over 100,000 jobs for black Americans, generated wealth in the hundreds of millions of dollars, in today's terms, billions, built institutions that lasted generations, shaped American culture in profound ways, proved that black entrepreneurship could compete at the highest levels. The triumph isn't just their individual success. It's that they did this in a system designed to prevent exactly this outcome. The real truth uncovered? The wealth gap didn't develop because black Americans couldn't build wealth. It developed because the institutions, policies, and narratives that made this wealth possible were systematically destroyed or hidden. When you understand Madam C.J. Walker's empire, and then look at the statistics showing black women entrepreneurs today, you're not looking at a difference in capability. You're looking at a difference in access to capital, institutional support, and historical knowledge of possibility. The system didn't want you to know that black Americans could build this, so they hid it. The question you should be asking yourself right now is simple. What else have I not been told? These stories weren't hidden because they're unimportant. They were hidden because they're threatening to a narrative of black inferiority and white entrepreneurial supremacy. If you knew that Madam C.J. Walker built a multi-million-dollar empire while facing segregation, then the argument that systemic racism doesn't affect outcomes becomes much harder to make. Think about what you learned in school about American entrepreneurship. How many of these names appeared in your textbooks? How many times did your education system celebrate black wealth building? Most Americans can name John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and Henry Ford, all titans of industry. But ask the average American about Madam C.J. Walker, and you get blank stares. That's not accidental. It's strategic erasure. Now that you know these stories, you have a responsibility. You have 3 choices. First, you can verify this information yourself. Go to Wikipedia, search these names in historical archives, listen to documentaries. Don't take my word for it. Research it. The truth becomes more powerful when you discover it yourself. Second, you can share this knowledge. Tell someone today about Madam C.J. Walker. Mention John Johnson's Ebony magazine to a friend. These stories deserve to be in conversations around dinner tables, in classrooms, in social media feeds. Knowledge that's not shared dies with you. Third, you can use this as inspiration. These weren't people born into privilege. They were people born into obstacles who chose to build anyway. Madam C.J. Walker was a washerwoman. John Johnson was a sharecropper's son. Sarah Spencer Washington came from a coal mining family. They didn't have trust funds or family connections. They had vision and determination. What are you building? What obstacles are you facing that they overcame? What empire are you capable of that history will try to erase? The wealth gap between black and white Americans today isn't a mystery when you understand this history. It's not the result of differing work ethics or intelligence. It's the result of a system that deliberately hidden, destroyed, and prevented the accumulation and transfer of wealth across generations. But knowledge is the first step toward change. You can't build on a foundation you don't know exists. You can't break cycles you don't understand. You can't claim power if you've been told your people never had any. Now you know. Madam C.J. Walker, John Johnson, Sarah Spencer Washington, Robert Abbott, A'Lelia Walker. These names are power. These stories are truth. What will you do with them? If you found this story valuable, if these names matter to you now, subscribe to this channel. We're committed to telling the hidden histories that shape why America looks the way it does. Hidden Black history isn't just entertainment. It's education. It's liberation. It's power.